Lele Pons, King Batch, Rudy Mancuso, Brittany Ferlin, also known as the Four Horsemen of the Comedic Apocalypse. They were cornerstones of the entertainment industry. They were geniuses in their craft, and they all really liked to use stereotypes as the punchlines of their jokes. Okay, let me explain myself. So if you weren't busy killing your brain cells from around 2013 to 2016, you probably don't know what Vine is. In its prime, Vine was a social media giant, pumping out 6-second videos that played on loop until you just can't take it anymore. By 2015, this piece of millennial history had over 200 million active followers, so I guess it was a pretty big deal. But that didn't stop Twitter from buying it and closing its doors for good in 2016. Rest in power. Although it was sad at the time, I'm not too upset looking back at it, especially because so many self-proclaimed comedians made so much funny content. Don't get me wrong, Vine wasn't all bad and still has its place in pop culture. We see comments all the time on TikTok saying, "Lol, this gives off Vine energy." The thing is though, the actually funny and clever creators like Danny Gonzalez and Drew Gooden were oftentimes overshadowed by the evil, corrupt, disgusting equivalent of the Hype House. Creators like King Batch, D-Storm Power, Rudy Mancuso, Jerry Purpodrink, and the rest of the gang would all come together to make some beautiful comedic content. Except, a lot of these comedians had only one type of joke. The type of joke where, you reinforce negative stereotypes for a quick and shallow laugh. You see, Vine was mature for all the 13-year-olds out there. So these creators thought they could come off with some raunchy and sometimes offensive content that everybody could laugh at. And I'm not just talking about fart jokes. Looking back at some of the Vines that the most popular creators on the app would make, I can't help but be upset, I guess. Like, how come these people who are, again, not funny at all, become millionaires based off of making racist and stereotypical jokes over and over again? And if their jokes weren't stereotypical, they were just shallow and unfunny. Now I don't want to be on my high horse and say I'm the funniest person in the world, because I'm not. My content isn't the greatest thing ever, and I don't think I deserve to be a millionaire just because I pump out some YouTube videos. But it is sad to see that these people who can make such stereotypical and shallow content can become so successful. I'm sure they had to do a lot of work to get where they are now and everything, but their past work does not show that at all. Using way over-exaggerated Asian accents, making every black person out to be either terrifying or only capable of eating watermelon, and having every Mexican character be a construction worker are all staples of these Viners' works. Considering the cancel culture that we live in now, it is so shocking that any of these people still have a fan base. I know it's pre-2017 to talk about bad Viners, but I want to take a look back at this relic of the past to explore how stereotypes and hipster racism is used in media. You see, there are ways to use stereotypes in comedy without reinforcing them and actually critiquing them. Hipster racism is not doing that. It is essentially brushing any offensive behavior done by the protagonist under a rug because it's a character quirk or something to laugh at. Think of any episode of The Big Bang Theory where the main group of guys are horrifically sexist, incredibly objectifying, and just immature losers. But it doesn't matter what they say, because it's funny. It's just a joke, they're quirky, they don't know how to act. So all of this doesn't matter. Except it does. The joke is the stereotype. By having the TV show prompt the viewer to laugh at it, it makes us never think that this could be offensive in any way.
I'd like to know why Penny's here.
I'm here to support my man, just like you.
What are you going to do? Take people's drink orders and get them wrong?
Do it.
We see this, along with reinforcing stereotypes, in so many popular Viners' creations, who are now so rich they could probably buy me. With that being said, let's take a look back at Vine and see how stereotypical comedy and hipster racism is used in media. The Office is objectively the greatest show ever made, and there is no argument. And this episode shows that. We're all familiar with this episode. Michael Ozu's incredibly colorblind and racist behavior when he says that he doesn't see Stanley as a black man and forces the employees to take part in an incredibly offensive diversity training act. This episode is full of stereotypical thinking and racist behavior. So why hasn't The Office been canceled yet? Well, the reason is because these stereotypes and racist behavior aren't the punchline of the joke. We're not laughing at Michael being racist, we're laughing at how awkward he makes everything is and how blatantly wrong his behavior is. For example, when he makes the employees join in on this training exercise that is incredibly stereotypical, we're not laughing at the actual act of stereotyping these people. We're laughing at how awkward everybody is and that Michael thinks Martin Luther King Jr. is a race. The situation that stems from Michael's over-the-top behavior is comical, and his racist thinking is so blatant and so over-exaggerated that we're not laughing and agreeing with him, we're laughing at the fact that he is so awkward and socially inept. By laughing at Michael and not with him, the audience isn't agreeing with his behavior. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Laughing at this behavior is inherently critiquing it, meaning that this episode successfully uses stereotypes in order to critique the stereotypes that are being used in the episode. So by using over-exaggerated behavior and having situations stem from that, The Office is able to critique stereotypes. But in case some dunce in the audience doesn't get the idea that Michael's behavior is wrong, the reactions from the other employees are there to cue them in that nobody should act like this in real life. Their reactions are comical themselves and only add to the awkwardness of the situation. So by directly critiquing Michael's behavior and getting some laughs, the audience member is enjoying a very fruitful moment where he is learning that, hey, don't be like Michael, don't be racist, don't be stereotypical, while all having a laugh. The episode also manages to not succumb to hipster racism by critiquing and punishing Michael at every chance it gets. Michael's told that he is the reason for this diversity training day. Kelly slaps him for being stereotypical, and basically every member of the office except for Dwight has a problem with how offensive he's acting.
Try my cookie cookie. Try my cookie cookie. Try my...
This all acts as a screaming message to the audience, yes you, the viewer, that you should not be like this man. Not every episode of The Office has a great critique like this one, but this goes to show that you can use stereotypes in comedy for good, rather than using it as the punchline of the joke and only reinforcing negative thoughts, which we see in a lot of Vines, like a lot of Vines. So we made a couple of bold points in the last paragraph, such as that we're not laughing with Michael's racist behavior, rather at it, therefore critiquing the idea of the stereotypes that he's using. The stereotyping wasn't the joke, it was actually the setup for the punchline where Michael gets punished in some way. I wasn't laughing at the act of Michael saying something horrifically stereotypical and racist towards Kelly. In fact, I was in the midst of passing away because of how awkward it was. But if we take a little look-see at Vine, we see the complete opposite. Stereotypes being used left and right, the joke of an entire skit just being someone saying the N-word, and white people enforcing prejudices were commonplace in these Vines. Seriously, if Vine was made in 2020, none of these people would be famous. I hope. Most of these Vines never critique the stereotypes that they're using. It is such a shallow joke, it's like a kiddie pool. Someone uses an over-exaggerated Asian accent, and that's it. That's the entire video.
Good morning.
Oh, it's a very good day.
No commentary, nothing telling people that this type of thinking is wrong, no speaking to a greater issue, just shallow laughs that only reinforce these terrible stereotypes. Let's take a look at some examples, shall we? One Vine that I thought was especially bad is this one, titled Hook on Ebonics.
Yeah, we're here for the tutoring? Oh, that. Pluralize what from that.
Man, I'm not that.
It opens with two black men walking to a classroom where a white man is teaching them. The white man tries telling them that it's pronounced then, and the black men erupt in confusion and anger saying it's pronounced den. If you can't see why this is problematic, you should probably read a book or be more caught up with our society as a whole, but I'll try and explain it just in case. Essentially, this Vine is only reinforcing the stereotype that black people are less educated than white people. By having the black men walk in an over-exaggerated way, and the white man teaching them the correct way to talk, it frames black people as more uneducated than white people, only enforcing a really harmful stereotype that people are subjected to all the time. It frames the white person in a position of someone that has to help the black people see the correct way of talking. Did somebody say the white savior complex? I swear I heard somebody say that. And trust me, there is a lot more where that came from. Like this one, where the joke is that King Batch's dad left him when he was a kid.
Happy Father's Day, Dad.
Happy Father's Day, Dad.
Yo, where's your dad?
He'll be back soon.
We laugh at the down on his luck King Batch, only reinforcing the stereotype that black fathers often leave their families. Or about this one, where the joke is an Arab man is talking about a party he was at where he was taking shots, to which the white Brittany Ferlin runs away in fear in the elevator.
Bro, last night's party was the bomb! We took so many shots!
Only reinforcing the idea of Islamophobia. Because, as we all know, I can't even say this, I can't even use sarcasm, it sounds so bad. These are only 3 of hundreds, if not thousands of vines that tell the audience that it's okay to reinforce stereotypes and think in a racist way because it's funny. No sarcasm, no satire, nothing deeper than a stereotype being used as a punchline in an incredibly repetitive and unfunny joke that, again, made these people millionaires. We can also see the use of hipster racism in the incredible line, "I guess I am."
Happy holidays, man.
Thanks, man. A carpet. What am I, Aladdin?
In this vine, the comedy master receives a gift in the form of a magic carpet from his friend Rudy Mancuso, another self-proclaimed comedian who is incredibly unfunny. At first, Anwar is upset for receiving such a horrifically stereotypical gift, but only a few seconds later is seen flying down Hollywood Boulevard, because that is the only place in the entire world that exists for these viners. It deems this offensive thinking as not only socially acceptable, but funny and even kind-hearted, and I really hope that the viewers can see a problem with that. What makes this especially upsetting is that it doesn't have to be a flurry of stereotypical thinking and racist behavior. Some vines actually do a pretty solid job at critiquing social inequalities. Trust me, I'm just as shocked as you when I say this, but King Batch actually has some vines that aren't half bad. Such as this one, where King Batch gets pulled over by a police officer who is, shockingly, Rudy Mancuso, because I guess the world is just frolicking with copies of this man.
Can you do me a favor, hold that? Yeah, hold that too. I need backup right away. Oh!
King Batch is forced to take the alcohol and the gun that the cop is holding before he promptly knocks himself out. We hear sirens as King Batch gets out of the car, where he assumingly gets arrested. This vine isn't quite perfect because King Batch does let the N-word fly for all the 13-year-old white kids to laugh at in their Xbox parties, but it actually does some really solid work at critiquing social inequalities with similar tactics as The Office. We see over-exaggeration of the problem at hand, which makes it comical and understanding to the audience that what's happening isn't good. We also see a negative reaction from King Batch, which is, I mean, at least they tried making the reaction comical, but what counts is that it's negative, so the audience knows that what's happening is really, really bad. Sure, this vine isn't perfect, but you can understand my shock by seeing this hidden gem in a 16-minute long compilation of racist vines. "I died at last night's party was the bomb, right when the elevator opened. The good old days when vines were lit. Some aren't racist." Are you kidding me? So not every vine has to be bad, but tragically, it is way easier to make a dozen vines in a day with a shallow joke based off of stereotypical thinking or racist behavior and make way too much money rather than making a solid critique through comedy. I can't say this for every member of the app, but when Vine came out, I was definitely in some of my most impressionable years. I was, what, 13? God, I'm tired. Anywho, studies have shown that excessive internet use can actually affect children's brains in a multitude of ways. It has been shown that use of social media apps such as Instagram have resulted in increased self-consciousness in teenagers. The book, The Coddling of the American Mind, has chapters upon chapters of this stuff, basically saying that internet use, with all of its pros and cons, does affect the development of children. We're a species of picking up cues and learning what we see. So what does this mean when a 13-year-old sees that stereotypical thinking is not only socially acceptable, but funny and something to laugh at? Where racism is something light, doesn't matter, can be treated as a joke, and everyone enjoys. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but having impressionable youths be subjected to dozens and dozens of pieces of content that show that this type of harmful thinking is okay is definitely not helping the development of critical thinkers. Again, I use Vine all the time. I loved it. But there is no denying that there is some absolutely trash content that is incredibly offensive and could have been exposed to a lot of young viewers. I just hope that we can learn from this, that stereotypes shouldn't be used as the punchline in jokes, but rather as a setup for a joke that critiques the stereotypes being used. and that the people who do reinforce racist thinking or stereotypical behavior shouldn't become millionaires. So yes, maybe I did just make this video because I'm jealous of King Batch having way more money than I will ever dream of having. But hey, at least I can sleep soundly knowing that my content isn't negatively affecting the perception of our society for impressionable youths. I hope. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Welcome to the outro. Just want to remind you all, thank you for watching, and subscribe and like if you want. You know, if you're feeling generous, I would really appreciate it. Yeah, that's it. Have a good day.